The Finance Committee approves the government's $24 billion anti-epidemic relief package. A mother and son charged with firearms possession offenses and being investigated for a suspected violation of the national security law. And in Washington, D.C., lawmakers push back against Trump's remarks about peaceful transfer of power.
Welcome to TVB News. Lawmakers scrutinize the government's $24 billion anti-epidemic relief package today. The government rejected another round of cash handouts, an extension of its employment support scheme, and the introduction of new unemployment subsidies, despite calls from lawmakers across parties.
This morning, Chief Secretary for Administration Matthew Cheng faced protests by Pan Democrats. They demanded that he meet with family members of the 12 Hong Kongers detained on the mainland. Haley Zhou reports.
Release the 12 Hong Kongers. Chief Secretary for Administration Matthew Cheng faced protests by pan-democratic lawmakers when he arrived at the legislature this morning to garner support for the government's latest anti-epidemic relief effort. Cheng was urged to meet with the family members of the 12 Hong Kongers detained on the mainland and help to get their deportation back to the city.
You can have a one-off meeting under your leadership. You are the only official perceived to be able to not be the government mouthpiece.
The Immigration Department is responsible for dealing with these issues.
From there on, a rough path to getting lawmakers on board with the relief package.
In terms of anti-epidemic work, the Carrie Lam administration has made a mess of it. A lot of people are unemployed, and you ask people to take up dishwashing jobs.
Lawmakers across the political spectrum want the government to offer another round of cash payouts, extend the employment support scheme, and introduce a new unemployment subsidy.
How do we define unemployment? That alone is highly controversial.
Cheng said people can benefit from relaxed asset requirements for the comprehensive Social Security Assistance Scheme and an increased allowance for low-income households.
Cathay Pacific is not even joining the next round of the ESS. They are going straight to redundancy. How are you going to help the employees? When you gave them the money, did you tell them not to sack people?
The $24 billion package includes the injection of $5.4 billion to businesses and individuals directly affected by anti-epidemic and social distancing measures, and $8.4 billion for future COVID-19 vaccines. Haley Zhou, TVB News.
A mother and a son were arrested after officers seized a cache of weapons in their home. The pair were charged with at least 3 firearm possession-related offenses.
They're also being investigated for possible violation of the national security law. Jackie Lin reports.
In an early morning raid on Thursday, police seized a stash of weapons in a flat in Fan Lane. They include a pepper ball handgun, 2 sabers, and a retractable baton, a bulletproof vest, and 15 military-grade gas masks. The items were mainly purchased from an overseas platform. A 23-year-old university student and his 49-year-old mother were arrested on the site. Apart from charges including the alleged possession of firearms without a license and import of strategic commodities without permission, the pair also allegedly violated the national security law. This as police say the suspects posted promotional materials advocating Hong Kong independence on a social media platform where they offered weapons for resale. One of their posts also claimed they have pelted pungent items towards the police cordon in a protest early September and vowed to use more powerful weapons in the future. Further investigations are underway as to whether the weapons are intended to be used for seditious purposes. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Local health authorities today reported 2 new locally acquired COVID-19 infections, bringing the city's coronavirus case count to 5,058. Both new cases are linked to previous coronavirus infections. One of the patients is a 40-year-old man who developed symptoms on Tuesday, while the other is a 50-year-old male without symptoms. For the fourth consecutive day, there were no local infections from unknown sources in Hong Kong.
The mainland reported 8 new imported COVID-19 cases. Over in Qingdao City of Shandong Province, local authorities reported 2 new asymptomatic coronavirus patients on Thursday. The 2 are workers at Qingdao Port. They offloaded a batch of imported frozen seafood on which coronavirus was later detected. The seafood products were sealed and did not enter the market. Close contacts of the 2 were quarantined. As the 2 were asymptomatic, the mainland does not classify them as confirmed COVID-19 patients. Mainland authorities have also provided an update on its COVID vaccine development. So far, 11 types of vaccines have entered clinical trials, while 4 of them are under the last stage of testing.
Elsewhere, the United States was involved in heated exchanges with China and Russia during Thursday's virtual UN Security Council meeting.
This despite UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres having called for increased global solidarity in the fight against COVID-19. Daniel Rao has more on this story.
UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres opened Thursday's Security Council meeting by slamming the global response to the coronavirus pandemic. Guterres argued the world's COVID-19 death toll would be much lower if there had been more cooperation in containing the virus. Chinese Foreign Minister Wang Yi, the first delegate to take the floor, echoed these sentiments.
In such a challenging moment, major countries are even more duty-bound to put the future of humankind first, discard Cold War mentality and ideological bias, and come together in the spirit of partnership.
Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov then stated that interstate differences had widened during the pandemic. Lavrov added that some countries may be attempting to shift blame elsewhere, to deflect from their mishandling of the crisis domestically. These comments did not go down well with the US ambassador to the UN. Kelly Craft claimed China failed to provide adequate information of the initial threat posed by COVID-19.
We must hold accountable the nation which unleashed this plague unto the world, China. The Chinese Communist Party's decision to hide the origins of this virus, minimize its danger, and suppress scientific cooperation transformed a local epidemic into a global pandemic.
China's UN ambassador Zhang Jun hit back at the US at the end of the session.
The United States has been spreading political virus and disinformation and creating confrontation and division. Enough is enough. You have created enough troubles for the world already.
The UN Security Council clashes come as the Trump administration ratchets up its hardline stance on China. This in a bid to promote their America First agenda ahead of November's presidential elections. Daniel Rao, TVB News.
Britain reported its highest number of coronavirus cases in a single day on Thursday, with 6,632 new infections. In response, Public Health England Medical Director Yvonne Doyle said citizens must follow the new government restrictions announced this week in order to control the spread of the virus. The new lockdown measures will curb pub opening times and limit social gatherings. Britain has the highest COVID death toll in Europe, with nearly 42,000 confirmed fatalities. In Spain, health authorities have asked Madrid residents to prepare for further lockdown measures. The country's confirmed COVID case tally has surpassed 700,000. More than 10,600 new infections were reported on Thursday, in addition to 84 new deaths. Protesters calling for improved coronavirus testing took to the streets of the city on Thursday. Rio de Janeiro's annual Carnaval parade won't be held in February due to the threats posed by the pandemic. The decision has been dubbed a postponement, but a revised date for the festival has yet to be announced. Rio de Janeiro's metropolitan region has recorded 15,000 COVID deaths so far, with Brazil being among one of the world's worst hit countries during the pandemic.
Top U.S. congressional leaders from both parties have quickly pushed back after President Donald Trump refused to commit to a peaceful transfer of power if he loses the November 3rd election.
Amid the uproar, lawmakers are offering assurances Trump can't ignore the results.
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
At a Wednesday news conference, Donald Trump used his signature "see what happens" remark to suddenly throw into question the ultimate hallmark of democracy. The White House later sought to clarify Trump's comments.
If the president loses this election, will this White House, will this president assure us that there will be a peaceful transfer of power?
The president will accept the results of a free and fair election.
Trump's ongoing attacks on the upcoming vote come as more Americans than ever plan to vote by mail because of the pandemic. Observers say his increased questioning before any result is all part of a larger picture,
in which he is sort of undermining Americans' faith in this electoral system, and that therefore we may be in a situation where Americans really don't know who won or what to believe.
Trump's fanning of uncertainty drew swift blowback from congressional leaders in both parties.
That a president of the United States would place in doubt the idea of the peaceful transfer of power is, well, it's no surprise, again, because the president has been contemptible of science and governance.
Let me be very clear to you. It will be peaceful. This nation is designed that way. This nation will have it that way. And that's exactly what will take place.
Trump's floating of theories of a rigged election if he loses echoes similar warnings he made ahead of the 2016 presidential vote. Past elections have not shown substantial evidence of fraud from mail-in voting. Still, some Democrats are taking action. They've formally asked Trump's defense secretary, Homeland Security advisor, and attorney general to declare they'll support the election results, whoever wins.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un has issued an apology for the killing of a South Korean official near a disputed sea boundary near the two countries. North Korea's United Front Department apologized, citing Kim in a letter addressed to South Korean President Moon Jae-in. On Thursday, Seoul accused Pyongyang of fatally shooting and burning the body of a South Korean civil servant who is likely trying to defect. This after he was found on a floating object in North Korean waters on Tuesday. Pyongyang claims its troops fired 10 live rounds after the man failed to answer questions regarding his identity and attempted to make an escape. The troops reportedly searched the area after the shooting, but could not find a body. The man's floating object was then burned in line with the North's strict coronavirus lockdown rules. Pyongyang's apology is likely to ease inter-Korean tensions, which have escalated in recent times.
Thousands of Thai protesters rallied at Parliament yesterday as it debated amending the Constitution. But scheduled voting by lawmakers on 6 proposed amendments to the country's military-backed constitution was canceled at the last minute. After 2 days of debate, Parliament voted to set up a committee to further consider such proposals. Any votes on amendments are likely to be postponed for at least a month. The current constitution was written by a military-appointed committee and passed a nationwide referendum in 2016 in which opposition campaigning was banned. Critics say its main aim was to secure a grip on power for the country's traditional ruling elite. Still ahead on tonight's news, details about arrangements for civil servants pledging allegiance to the SAR government. Hong Kong Disneyland reopens to the public.
Welcome back. Going forward, civil servants pledging allegiance to the government must do so through oath-taking or a written declaration. Those refusing to comply won't be hired.
The arrangement will begin next month, starting with civil servants assuming their roles on July 1st or later. Kana Chu tells us more.
Advancing through rounds of the selection process, civil servants will not be hired until they pass a final ritual that involves stating their fidelity to the government, either by oath or in black and white.
For those new recruits joining the government on or after 1st July this year, we would make an arrangement for them to make a written declaration.
As for earlier recruits of the roughly 180,000 strong sector, details are still in the works amid talks between the government and major civil service staff unions.
We would take into account all the comments, feedbacks received, and then finalize the arrangements and make the promulgation when we are in a position to do so.
According to the Civil Service Minister, such requirements are nothing new, as it is laid out not only in the Civil Service Code, but also the city's mini constitution and the sweeping new national security law.
We hope that through this requirement, there could be a manifestation of the civil service responsibility to uphold the basic law and pledge allegiance to the Hong Kong Special Administrative Region.
In the age of social media, civil servants also risk penalty for any online comments questioning their loyalty. While acknowledging the freedom of speech, NIP said civil servants should be aware of their professional identities and avoid publishing content that could violate rules. That's in spite of privacy settings, which may not always guarantee confidentiality. Those found stepping over the line are punishable by an existing mechanism which allows appeals. And the worst that can happen, termination. Kana Chu, TVB News.
Police have officially banned a march on Hong Kong Island planned by the Civil Human Rights Front for October 1st. The police's letter of objection says current social distancing rules limit public gatherings to no more than 4 people and rallies are not exempted. The letter also states that since June last year, multiple rallies and marches have been held by a group have ended in violence. The Civil Human Rights Front will appeal against the police decision.
A 26-year-old construction worker was given a 4-year jail sentence over charges of rioting and common assault. Shum Hui Lun was found guilty by District Court Judge Anthony Kwok for taking part in a siege of the police headquarters on June 26th last year. Shum is the first person to be found guilty of rioting for participating in an anti-extradition law protest and sentenced to jail after undergoing a court trial.
An accounting clerk has been acquitted of 1 count of possession of offensive weapon at the West Kowloon Magistracy. 24-year-old Wong Hoi Lam was charged for shining a laser pen at police officers inside a vehicle at Kwai Chung in August last year. Magistrate Lam Zi Khan said there was no evidence to show that Wong had intended to hurt anybody with the laser pen. The magistrate also said laser pen is a commonly used stationary item, and it's fitting for Wong to own one for her work. In another desperate move to stay afloat, Hong Kong Airlines is appealing to its staff to switch their full-time work to part-time for 4 months. In an internal email, the cash-strapped carrier said it expects fewer than 10 flights operating in the coming few months. That also means the airline only needs half the total of its cabin crew. In the proposal, those who voluntarily change to part-time work would have their basic salary and allowances slashed by 30%.
Hong Kong Disneyland reopened today after being closed for 2 months due to the pandemic. Social distancing rules and antivirus measures were in place, with the park operating at a reduced capacity. Pinky Wong has more.
Disneyland reopened its doors today after being closed for more than 2 months due to the pandemic. Visitors are required to make an online reservation and submit a health declaration prior to their visits. This Disney fanatic arrived at the park early.
I'm really excited because I like I have been waiting for a month to looking forward to the opening of the park.
But she wasn't as happy about the Hong Kong government's decision against possible future expansion for now.
I'm really disappointed because I think the government should have a long-term planning, because I think this decision really short-sighted.
Hong Kong Disneyland will be closed on Tuesdays and Thursdays initially, but the arrangement will likely not deter many die-hard fans.
Every time it did reopen during the pandemic, we came and we felt very safe.
I'm very happy that it's opening today. We used to come like once every week. I've been to Tokyo Disney last year. So I think I've been quite a fan of the parks for about 2 years, but I've been a Disney fan ever since I was a kid.
Indoor live performances will be suspended, but unlike the last reopening, Disney characters are back to greet visitors.
Are you happy today?
Yes.
Who are you going to see?
Minnie Mouse.
Visitors can now take a closer look at the newly unveiled castle, which has been renovated for some 2 years and is expected to open by the end of the year. Thank you, Wong, TVB News.
That's the news. Thanks for watching.
Bye for now.